Hi, my name is Noreen Wenjen, and I'd like to welcome you to my session, Tech Necessities 101. Get the latest and greatest technology for your music studio. Streaming live from sunny California, and I'm excited to be part of this MTNA, Music Teachers National Association, very first virtual conference. Today's topics, I'm going to talk to you about music games for part one. I'm going to mostly talk about apps. Part two is going to be about business software. And part three, I'm calling it Teach Today Online, because I know so many of us are just transitioning into teaching online. A little bit about my background. I was in local and international competitions for piano for about 20 years. And I have a Bachelor of Music in Piano Performance from Santa Barbara, and I also attained an artist diploma. I have hands-on marketing and entrepreneurial experience with 2 Fortune 500 companies, one called Mac Temps, which is now called Aquient, and also I worked for Nissan Foods, home of the Cup Noodle. I'm also an author, and this year in March, I published a book entitled To Your Waitlist, an Entrepreneurial Guide for Music Teachers. And I have about 27 years of teaching experience. And the very beginning, when I first started teaching, I joined MTNA, and MTNA has just been a wonderful guiding support for me for all these years. I've been teaching online for almost 8 years. It was more out of necessity at that time. It was in about 2013, one of my students that I taught for many years, from when he was about maybe 4 years old, and now he was heading into his teens, was diagnosed with ADHD, and he really needed a very long 1-hour lesson in order to cover the content. And we found that having 2 shorter lessons worked out better. However, I have 2 piano studios, and I was only down in that location once a week. So our compromise was that one day we would meet face-to-face at a live lesson, and then 3 or 4 days later we'd have another half-an-hour lesson. At that time it was via FaceTime. Kids love screens, and it worked out really well. In fact, the mother was so surprised that he was so attentive, even perhaps more attentive, when having his online lesson than he was even in person. And also later I had an adult student that moved out of state, and so we did online lessons for many years. And I even had a student that moved out of the country for a year to Germany, and it became very useful as well. So the first part is about music games, and I'm going to offer different kinds of apps for various age levels that my students enjoy. This is kind of a newer one. It's called Big Ear app, and it's great for ear training. It is a fun, interactive game, and I would say for about ages, maybe starting in 3, 4, 5. So it plays the tune, and then you listen to each of the notes, and you drag it in sequentially. So great for ear training. The next one is called Ning Genius. It's supposed to be a combination of a ninja and being a genius. It works on naming notes and also fingerings. And it was created by a band director for every instrument in band and orchestra. And the light version is free, so you can try it out. And then if you want to unlock higher levels later, I think you have to upgrade to a paid version. Let's see what this one's like. The fun thing about it is the faster you name the notes, the higher your score goes.
I hit the right fingering for.
And
correctly guessed all.
You have to guess all of the notes, and it gives you totals. Fun game.
Oh, yeah, white.
Okay, next I have, this is an older game, but my students really like it. And there's a studio version where you can keep track of all your students. So if they come early or if you have a portion of your lesson that includes technology and games, they could just sit down and play that on a separate iPad. This is great for sight reading, and it's also time controlled. So again, you have to name them in a certain amount of time. That could be a little stressful for some kids if they don't read very quickly, but you can always just keep playing again. It goes from about beginning to intermediate level. So once you click play, the notes start coming out one by one. And the little dot down there is middle C. So you do have to place the notes in the correct octave. And you can use your finger on the iPad. It's a little tricky on a very, very small device unless your hands are small. Sometimes I use my iPencil, which actually is a lot easier. Now, if you hit some of the wrong notes, it's going to flame up over there. And then at the very end of this category, after you have the wrong notes, it will actually go through and have you name the ones that you missed. This one is called The Most Addicting Sheep Game, and it's, again, an older one, but it's very, very fun. It is 99 cents in the App Store. I think they only have it for Mac iOS, but it is fun for all ages, and it's really made for one person. But sometimes I do play it along like with my family members, and we both try to do a little part of it. Helps you keep rhythm. You use one finger, you can use two fingers. Sometimes they have parts that you have to roll. So it works with timing and coordination, and it does align exactly with the rhythm of the music. And it does get very challenging as you go up in level. Next, this is called the Demo app. And this is great if you have middle school, maybe high school students. It's sort of it's a rhythm app. It sort of has a rich story, fantasy-based adventure type of feel to it. It has really lovely music, and it's a tapping game, a lot like that sheep game that I just showed to you, but it's much more in-depth and more creative and well-crafted in terms of visually and musically. It's $1.99 on the App Store, and I believe you can get it free on Google Play. Here's a little of that. So as these things are coming towards you, you need to tap them with either one or two fingers in rhythm. And I'll just take you through a little bit of it. So there are different songs and different modules. Some of them require more purchases, and the bottom line is it's about a story about a girl. All right, and now I found one that is great for all ages, including adults. It's a free app called Arpeggio. It helps you with intervals, melodic dictation, rhythmic dictation, and leaderboard. It can track progress, and let's try that. I got that from Homebound Music App of the Day, and they had a lot of free apps on that. And I also have some apps and different videos listed on my website, wenjenpiano.com, Summer Music Fun. You can click on this link. Every summer I we not have a little short break, maybe if it's a week or so. I want students to stay active and engaged. So I put together a very long list. It's compiled over the years of a combination of videos, active games, things to do, compose, and I found games over the years. And the students will try to do as many as they can. They keep track of the things that they do, and they log on and try to get a certain amount of points, and then they earn a prize or a summer music fun composer statue at when fall resumes at the next recital. And here's something else that's great for all ages, adults, kids, related to composition, called MuseScore. It's notation software. It's free to download, but they have this online music school songbook. For that, you need a subscription, but what it allows you to do is to access many compositions from anybody in this online community. So you could compose your own music, you can upload it to MuseScore, and it's free once you buy the subscription to the songbook, but people can access your music and play it if you wish to share it in that way. We've used it in the past. I've had students who like anime, and sometimes they can't find that exact music. It's not big enough to be published by one of the bigger publishing companies, but there are people or kids who have taken on to themselves to figure out the music and compose their own versions. So it's been really fun. This next section is called Small Business Apps and Software. And so I'm going to cover a lot of the apps that you would use for your studios, your music studios, including invoicing, payments, and studio communication. So I'm thinking about, what do teachers need right now? I've really shaped this whole portion, as well as most of the content, in relation to where we are right now with the COVID-19 virus and keeping everybody at home. And there's a lot of adjustments that we all have to make. So right now, what seems to be very important for us is we need to keep our income, rain or shine. We need to keep our income going. We need a stable income. Many of us it's our only source of income. We are professional music teachers, so it's very important to keep that. It's important that we get paid on time, because we have bills that we have to pay on time. So I'm going to go a little bit over online invoicing and payments, recurring invoices, and payment notifications. This is important, and all of this does take time, so I'm going to help you streamline that. Online payments save you time, and because then you don't have to make bank deposits. Even when you have to make bank deposits by logging into your bank and taking pictures of the front and back, that's all costing you time. And we're going to also focus on having a safer handling of money. And a good focus is also to have your transactions record automatically, so that you don't have to do each one of those by hand after teaching a long day. Obsolete payments. If your students still pay by checks, that is becoming an obsolete payment structure, especially now at the time when we are supposed to keep 6 feet of distance between us and our students. Cash payments really is never such a good idea, because it's difficult to track. It's really a red flag to the IRS. Also, a reminder to track your business separately from your personal accounts. Try to keep a separate business account. So you can open these up online if you don't already have them. You can open a second checking account for your studio. And you can also just either designate one of your credit cards to your music studio, or you can get a new one. Online payment options. Well, there are a lot of ways to pay. A really good way are the bank transfers, the ACH, direct deposits, and bill pay. And I'll go over that in a little more detail. And we have Venmo, which is a person-to-person payment option. And the only problem about that is it's really more intended for personal payments. Venmo is an app and a lot of people use it. So say you go out to lunch with 5 friends and one person pays the bill, and you can just figure out the bill by 5 people and everybody can pay that person. It works great for social things like that. The problem with paying professional services with it is that, unlike transferring money in a bank or by credit card, if there's a mistake, you can't get that money back. Once you've sent it to the person, say you thought that was your student's Venmo account, but it's really not, there's no recourse in regaining the funds back again. So I would say to probably stay away from Venmo for your music business. PayPal's great. It's great. A lot of times we use it if we're selling merchandise. It does coordinate with some of the larger software applications like QuickBooks, although I think they are going to be taking that out very soon. QuickBooks has its own payment option, and I'll be going over that as well. And we have Square, we have website connected payments. You can have separate ones just from your website. For example, Stripe is used for Squarespace websites. Can you charge transaction fees? Well, in 2017, the Supreme Court overturned New York's anti-surcharge law. These laws do vary by state, but it kind of set a new precedence. And what they said was basically adding a credit card surcharge is similar to having cash discounts. Therefore, they would allow it. Should you charge transaction fees? Most merchants find it unfair to charge customers more. It is discouraging to buyers. So if you have a choice to purchase something and at 2 places, and one place says, this is the price, but I'm gonna charge you 3% more, 2.9% more for a transaction fee, you're more likely to go to the place that isn't charging you. Figure out what works best for your financial situation. People do a separate type of fee to cover transactions, but maybe separate from the actual purchase. One thing that I notice is that my parents who pay by credit cards, a lot of the parents say, oh, great, I can pay by credit card. I love it because I'm trying to get my rewards. I'm going to get cash back. I'm going to get miles back. There's also bank ACH transfers. You do have to provide your bank account and routing number to the students in order for them to set up the ACH transfer from their end. But you kind of have to think of it this way. When you write a check to somebody, your bank account number is on there and the routing number is on there as well. And so some people feel like this is actually this is a more secure way than checks because there's no in between. It won't get lost. It's going to go directly from one account to the other. If you set this up and outside of something like QuickBooks and you just do it between 2 banks, there's generally no fees, but then your transactions won't be automatically recorded and you just have to put all those in by hand. A little bit more about the bank ACH transfers. There is faster processing time, and we find it to be fairly secure. And one nice thing is that a lot of times it can be set up as recurring bills. So either you can set it up under your recurring billing under something like QuickBooks, and so then it'll get paid automatically, or the parent could set it up as a recurring payment to you. So credit cards versus ACH fees. The ACH QuickBook deposits, for desktop, QuickBooks desktops is about 1%, and they have a maximum of $10. And the ACH QuickBooks for online transaction fee is just 50 cents per transaction. Credit cards, however, are quite a bit more. 2.9% on each transaction does add up if you have a lot of students. So if you have, upwards of 25 students and they all pay online by credit card, that you really have to account for paying close to 3%. That's going to go back to the credit card as an expense. One benefit of these three things is that all these payments, when I use it with QuickBooks, it all records automatically. There's also an app that a lot of people who don't want to spend the money for QuickBooks Online because it can be costly. It's actually free, called Wave, the Wave app that you can try. It does not have all of the features that you're going to have for QuickBooks. Some of the things that I like for QuickBooks include like the receipt capture, and I really like that I have a mobile app that I can walk around with and enter things when I'm in the car after I've just gone shopping, if I've just purchased a music book or something like that. Accounting software apps track income and they track your expenses, online billing and payment. Some of us are still getting together our taxes. You find that if you consistently use a software app for your accounting year after year, it becomes very streamlined and much easier for you and also your accountant or tax attorney to help you prepare your taxes each year. If you don't want to mess around with these different accounting software packages, you can get all-in-one solutions. My music staff and music teacher helper are two very popular ones, including calendaring. They will even set up a website for you that you just barely have to put anything in and boom, you've got a website. They will actually have a billing portion, although it's not going to be as detailed and thorough as an app dealing only with accounting. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about a few communications apps. You know, we really need communication apps, especially now that we are not seeing our students face-to-face every week. And so a really great communication app that I've been using more of is Remind. So Remind from remind.com is a great way to contact your students. So one thing that I notice is that the parents and the students all take in information and communicate differently. Younger students and even younger adults tend to prefer texting to emails. So how do you get all this information to your students and to your parents? And especially during this time where everyone's just getting inundated with the emails. Well, remind.com has a way that you can send your reminders via text or via email. It's great with your young students, with your students who are minors, because there's also a one-way communication option. They'll get your communication, but then they actually can't reply to you. You can also take the reminders, and I put them at the bottom of my homepage for my website so that people who miss the reminders can circle back and remind themselves of what they might have missed. So here's an example of how I used this recently. I started this Instagram, IGTV, these posts because I was trying to get my students to stay engaged and keep playing and keep practicing and keep performing. So I have this thing called Wenjen Piano Performs, hashtag Wenjen Piano Performs. And I wanted to remind them to send in their videos. So I sent it on Remind with a lot of videos posted immediately after I sent that. Also, sometimes you might have urgent text reminders. We had a Bach Festival signups. I didn't have everybody's waivers, and so I was able to just send a text instead of doing it individually to the whole group, just to alert them that this was an urgent message. You can actually sign up your students for them, or you can have them sign up, and you can designate them as parents or students. And here's a couple of reminders for your communications. Remember to use caution when texting with minors. Always want to make sure that the liability is covered and that the parents are aware of communications outside of your studio lesson, or even inside, of course, of what's going on in the studio if they are not there. So make sure that you get studio policy consent from the parents of your studio. If you're curious, I actually sell a template of my studio policy, and it has many different areas in it, and part of it that's covered is, with technology. All right, constant contact is also a great way to contact your students. It's great for large groups. Don't forget that when you send emails for privacy, when you're sending it to a large group of your families, or especially if you have your students' emails in there, remember to put it in as a BCC, a blind carbon copy. Send it to yourself and then BCC the group so that everybody's emails aren't getting out there to everybody, because you don't want to open everyone up to spam or phishing problems in the future. So constant contact is great because if you do try to send emails to over, let's say, 50 or 60 people, sometimes it will not send because it will be flagged as spam. So constant contact is a great way to reach large groups. And I send a lot of newsletters on constant contact, and I have them posted on my website if you want to look at those. They have also this small business support kit. Just thought I would add that in for those of you just getting started with constant contact. Social media helps us keep teaching online, and it does require apps, and we are keeping our students learning, we're keeping them engaged, and we're keeping them connected with music. At this point, I'd like to do a virtual business card exchange. I usually love to do this during my sessions and just give the teachers a time to connect, to meet other teachers. It's especially wonderful at the MTNA conferences where the teachers are coming from all different places from around the country, and encouraging teachers to meet other teachers. So I'm going to tell you a different way of doing this, since we aren't meeting in person, but business cards are still very important because they give us a visual identity of the person, and they're informative and they're memorable. And so this is a good time, if you have extra time and you do not have a business card, to create one and to get a paper printed one. I'm also going to show you another option for digital cards. So you can create your own card and your own QR code. This is one that I use called Code Monkey, QR Code Monkey, and there's a link to it and it's free. And you can create a virtual card, which is the V card, or you can create this code that I created. Actually goes right to my website. So if I take my phone, I'm going to pretend I'm taking a photo, and then it comes up website or code, and then I click it and it will take me right to the linked website. So that can also go right to your virtual card as well, to your V card. So check it out. It's kind of fun. If you have any forms, or if you have a social media account that you want people to view, you can use it for that as well. QR codes are coming back. It's great. They've been using it all over in different countries and for purchasing. So get familiar with the QR codes. Now to the third part of my session, Teach Today Online. All right, we're going to talk about teaching, getting started. Some of you have already gotten your feet wet and tried some lessons, and I'm going to kind of do it in 3 different stages. Okay, for me personally, I think that what you need to do is start with equipment that you already have, especially right now where they're not encouraging people to go out in public and to shop. And it's very difficult to purchase things online right now because shipping is just very jammed up, and a lot of things are already out of stock. So I'm going to encourage you today to try out giving lessons online with the equipment that you already have. I'm going to give you a lot of ideas, and I'm going to go over the various types of video telephony software. By the way, this photo was taken. We had a flood in our house just about a month ago, and right before all this stuff hit. And the reason why I have headphones on there is because while I was teaching online, I had about 5 fans and blowers going on in the other room, and people ripping out my floors and walls, and I was still able to get 6 hours of teaching in online. All right, so we all know about the COVID-19 restrictions, And so I'm going to give you ideas for the best equipment for you to teach online today. So let's use what you have, see how it works, and then you can always upgrade later. For lesson preparation, I think there are certain things that are important. Organize the scores of your students' repertoire before your lessons, or have your books clearly marked with sticky tabs and maybe the name of the student's pieces on there. You know, if you have students, if each of your students studies a lot of pieces, 3 or 4 during a lesson, you know, you don't want to spend a lot of time combing through your bookshelf trying to look for those music books. So it's important to have scores of all of your students' repertoire. It is very difficult to try to teach online without having a visual copy of that score. So if you don't already have that, you can purchase the copies online. There are digital downloads that you can download legally from IMSLP for works that are 100 years old. Or you can purchase them from different resources. Here are some of your choices. IMSLP website. I believe you can click on these icons and it'll take you to the website. MuseScore, they're going to have a lot of editions that are not standard editions from large publishing companies. They might be just, you know, other people's editions. Music Notes, where you can download music instantly and you can get an account that will give you discounts if you download a lot of music or if you want to store a lot of music. Sheet Music Plus also has digital downloads, but they can also send it to you by mail, and Amazon as well. For my downloaded music, I like to store it all on iPads, and then for some of them where I'm allowed to print it out, I will print it out and keep it in a notebook. Video calls. There are many types of video calls. Some are free and some are not. So you just need to know that. Most video calls are free, but if you do use a Skype, phone calls without video may cost money, but the video calls are free. So you have to be careful on how you're calling, and you want to make sure that if you do not have unlimited data plans, and you are not using your Wi-Fi, you want to make sure that you don't have overages and end up, you know, having to pay a lot of money, you know, if you make calls without Wi-Fi. So make sure that you are connected to Wi-Fi to avoid these overages. All right. At this time, you cannot really play concerti or duets at the same time, one end to another, exactly in sync. There's a very, very small delay. I mean, the only case where this is, where you can do this is if you have, like Yamaha has extremely high-tech pianos, where if you have the same type of that disclavier on both ends, and then you have to have 2 Wi-Fi networks for incoming and outgoing, it can be played at the same time. And also the notes actually come up through your keyboard. So it's, but most teachers are not going to have the exact same digital piano as their students, I would say, at this time yet. And you can, however, use YouTube for accompaniment. What I did for my adult student who lived in a different state when she was learning Mozart concerto is that I would put a metronome on, and then I would play the accompaniment, and I would upload it to YouTube, and then she would play it back, and I would do a version also with no metronome, so it was a little more flowing, and she really enjoyed that. She said it was great since she couldn't be in person for the ensemble part. She really utilized that. We're going to get started with more teaching tips for teaching online. Here is the most basic option. The most basic option using what you have. Because remember, it's not only what you have, it's what your students have. So teachers and students can use, if you both have iPhones, you can both use FaceTime video. And very simply, you just have the student lean the iPhone against the side arm key block, and you can see you can see, you just lean it up there and you'll be able to see the keyboard and they'll be able to see the keyboard. Here's what your students see. So here's actually the video. This was me, and I'm seeing, this is what my students were looking at from me when I had it set up that way. So they could see pretty much the keyboard. They could see, if I lean in, they could see my face in there. And the outside noise, again, wear a headset with a built-in mic if you have a lot of outside noise. Or sometimes I tend to talk very loudly when I'm talking online. And so if it's disturbing the rest of my family, because they're all home now, I will put on the headphones. It makes me speak a little quieter, and then my students can still hear me very well. There's some links to some list of headphones with built-in microphones. So here's another view from one of my students. With Android phones, you won't be able to use FaceTime because that is an iOS with iPhones. So you'll have to use a different method for that if your student has an Android or a non-iPhone. Okay, next on the equipment list, if you want to get a little bit more into equipment, or say you have an iPad at home or an iPad Pro, use that. It provides a larger screen, but you will need some kind of a stand to prop it up. And this is what I use. It's great because I can tilt it. It's about the right level. I don't have to stack books. Although I asked one of my students what she was propping her phone up one time, and she said, I think she had a laptop or an iPad, and she said, "Oh, I've got it on my luggage and 5 books." And so students can be creative about how to set up their phone or their device. All right, for iPads, I would say get the largest screen that you can afford if you're buying a new one. My iPad Pro that I have is probably 5 or 6 years old. I'm hoping to purchase a new one at some point soon. I know they're out because the new ones have better camera, it has better sound capabilities, and more memory. Make sure you have backup devices. Things can go wrong. So always have your chargers handy and try to keep it plugged in if you can, so that you don't all of a sudden get down to 0 battery. I have 2 backup devices, and I have in one lesson one time used all 3 because the battery ran out in one thing or something wasn't working right in the other. Also, Wi-Fi may be slower than 5G at times, or vice versa. So, or 4G, whatever you have for your network. Again, make sure that you're only using that 4G or 5G if you have unlimited data, because you don't want to rack up huge bills for that. With my iPad, I use this stand. It's the Wenjen floor stand, and it has an attachment. It has several attachments, so you can attach either a phone, a smaller iPad, or the iPad Pro. I got this one specifically because it was large enough for the iPad Pro. It's very, it's fairly sturdy. It's light, and it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. I mean, I even use it to watch movies sometimes. I carry it around and I'll put it in the backyard if I want to, sit out with the kids and in the hot tub and watch a movie. We'll just bring it out there, or you can bring it by your bed if you want to watch a movie in bed or something like that. So it's a real versatile stand. I've had it for many years, and it's been great. You will be able to hear a lot better if you have an external speaker. So I use, again, I don't have like the newest equipment for this. I've been doing this for quite a long time, but I have a Bose external speaker that has a built-in microphone, and the sound quality is just fine. And the newer models will probably be even better. I prefer wired speakers versus the Bluetooth because it's one more connection that can be slowed down or interrupted. So this particular speaker has a wire that you can see that is just plugged in there to the side of my iPad for where my headphone jack would go. Now, if you don't have a headphone jack with your device, you will need to get some kind of a Bluetooth Bluetooth speaker. But make sure it has a built-in microphone unless you are setting that up separately. Now you could do a lesson without any of that, just with your iPad, but you will not hear as well, and your students will probably not hear you as well. If you need to move things around, the options of being rechargeable or cordless for the speakers, they're great options to have. So here's the one that I've been using, and I provided you a list of the 10 best portable speakers, which is more updated, but this is the one that I use. I just plug it in the back. It has a cable adapter, and I can choose the buttons on the top to choose how to hear that, how to get the sound out. All right, so here we are. Just use what you have. So if you don't have a fancy stand, but maybe you have a sheet music stand, you can use that to put your iPad on. And it's not going to tilt in exactly the same way. You want to be careful that it doesn't fall forward and you don't, break your screen. But it's going to give you the height that you probably need. You could also use your iPhone on a tripod if you want that type of a downward view. I find that the side view is great, and however, you will need a mounting device. I use this mounting device, square jellyfish mount, and I've used this for many years also. It comes, I'll show you in the next slide, the bottom of it, because it can be a standalone that you can actually just set on something next to your piano or on top of your piano. But it unscrews into any of the mounts for tripods, for the standard tripod sizes. And so you can get it this is the more updated version, but that's the little bottom part. You can get only the top part, or you can get the bottom part that will stand on its own. And it's fairly sturdy for a phone. It works with the new Apple, I believe it works with the 10s and the 11s. All right, and finally, high-end equipment. So this is not my studio. Our president-elect for Cat Mount, she was showing me her new equipment, and I was so impressed that I said, can I borrow your photos? Because I think this is awesome. And now she requires higher equipment like this, high-end equipment, because she teaches at a college, group classes, and is also teaching privately. So shout out to Mona for this great setup and for her ideas for this. Okay. So she has an overhead camera here, and what's nice is that the overhead camera provides the same direction view as the student. You can see that it goes up and above here, and it goes straight down so they can see the hands. It's great for beginners, people that you need to really show hand positionings if they have a hard time finding the keys, and especially if you're teaching a large class of beginning students or just a large class of students at one time. She invested in the heavy-duty tripod, she said, because she wanted to make sure that all of this equipment would be steady and stable and safe. So here's a link to one of the tripods that she used. And she also has an overhead mic linked up, and the mic, and she also gives it a directed sound, and she also has this Roland apparatus that it's a controller that will help to control all these different devices for the sound. Now she also has a front view camera so that the students can view the teacher's face. So she has that on a separate tripod with what looks like a DSLR. Now she also has a front view camera so that the students can view the teacher's face. So she has that on a separate tripod with what looks like a DSLR. Probably she already had that camera, I imagine. Just set that up. This was a new device though that she said she purchased. It is an iPad camera toggle, and it allows her to switch to quickly with her foot, switch screens back and forth, toggle between the various camera screens. And without having to get up and manually move anything. She got a lot of this equipment, the ideas from Hugh Sung. And so I've given you a link to his website, and he has a page for equipment links and also products. Although she did say that the products were quite scarce and difficult, limited now. He also has a How to Teach Piano Online YouTube video that you might want to check out. And I've also added on some other resources for online teaching. For CAPMount, the California Association of Professional Music Teachers, our president sent out a greeting to all of the members and to give them some links. These are, I think, probably mostly MTNA members. And we wanted to share these great videos that people are putting out every day on helping each other to teach online. So a couple reminders. This is my adult student that moved, and this is when she was in Idaho, and she had the laptop. I just wanted to show you some setups here. So, the student equipment, you're not going to be able to require that they get a certain level of equipment. So it's going to depend on what they have, how high tech they are, and how much they want to invest in this. For my student Candace, her son came out, and this was many years ago, came out and set everything up for her. She got a special stand to put her laptop on, and they fixed the angle, and he also set up a separate Bluetooth speaker. You want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is as fast as possible. I recently called my my internet company to see if I could get mine sped up. And surprisingly, I was able to get it sped up. They had to come out and lay down some new wires outside. They upgraded my boxes that I had inside the house for videos and recording DVRs. And I'm getting 4 times the speed and actually paying $25 less. So how is this possible? People are asking me. It's because my plan was so old and I hadn't upgraded in so many years. But now it's much more competitive for the companies to get your business. So they have much better prices and better deals than they used to. So if you find that your internet is going out, you might want to call and see if you can get an upgrade on speed at a good deal. You need some kind of video platform to communicate with your students. FaceTime, if you have for iPhone users, and if you have Android users, you can use Skype. And the thing about Skype though is that you have to know your student's username. And what I found was the problem with Skype was that if they weren't there exactly at their phone, I would have to keep calling or leave a message. And sometimes maybe they forgot about it and never got my message. And it was a little harder to track students down that way. There's also WhatsApp. Some of the younger kids tend to use this just for chatting and communicating. And WeChat, such as maybe calling to China if there were certain things that wouldn't work. WeChat seemed to work for that. My preference is really the Zoom app video platform, and I'll tell you a little more about that. So the thing about the Zoom app is that it works with so many different types of systems. Here are the requirements for internet connection, and a lot of these things that we talked about, the equipment. And I put a link to the requirements so you can click on that. But it works on virtually every device, including Mac computers, PCs, iPads, tablets, and iPhones. It supports all of these different types of operating systems. So that's great. It pretty much covers everything. There's a free Zoom account, and you get, on the free account, you will get unlimited one-to-one meetings, unlimited amount of time. If you have more than one person, so there's more than 2 people in a meeting, you will have a time limit of 40 minutes. But you can have up to 100 participants, even in the free version of it. Now, you won't have the capability to record, and the students and teachers have to download their app on their device preferably ahead of time so it doesn't interfere with your lesson time. So it's great because you can set up appointments early and you can make them recurring, and you literally can go back to back, lesson to lesson. It will chime in when that your next appointment is about to begin, and you can end one and go straight to the other and log on without having to call anybody. I have the Zoom Pro account, which is $14.99 a month, and it comes with the iCloud recording, and there's a 24-hour limit per meeting. I don't ever have meetings that long, but in case I do, I guess it's nice to have. The iCloud recording time is not that long, so I have to go through and clear out my accounts if I record. I don't record every student's lessons completely on this. It would be far too much recording time. The other thing that's nice is that it provides a waiting room. So a waiting room is that your student could enter the waiting room and wait for you to enter. So if I'm finishing teaching up the lesson before, they can already be logged in and waiting. And then you can enter the waiting, you can bring them into the meeting right when you're ready. Then you don't have to mess around with dialing and trying to figure out who to call at what time. And the meeting notifications are really great. And another added thing that I found to be really helpful is the Zoom whiteboard. So the Zoom whiteboard is great. It's an option that you can kind of toggle and find it, and you basically show your screen, but instead of your screen turns into a whiteboard. So if it's on an iPad, you can use your finger to write on the screen. If it's on your computer, you have to use your mouse. It's a great addition to studying theory during your private lesson. If you teach group theory lessons, you could have everybody log in at the same time and still hold your group theory lessons. And either paid or free users have this option. So you can see what it looks like. That's the whiteboard. And my student was showing me, I was helping to correct his theory page. He was showing me a particular portion. I've also used it to just kind of explain rhythm. Here I am with one of my adult students, and we were trying to work out a particular rhythmic part. And so I was able just to write on my iPad this is with my finger, explaining the rhythm, teaching your theory. All right, so a couple reminders when you're scheduling your Zoom. I would recommend using a password. I don't know if you heard about it, but there was, LA had some kind of a city council meeting, and because it was not locked down with a password, it got spammed with porn during the middle of their meeting. So we do not want that to happen during the middle of our students' lessons. So it's good to provide a password. It's easy to do. It's just an option that you click on. And when you click on to that use password option, it will, when you cut and paste the invitation, your password will be included in that. So you can set up recurring lessons also. So once you set up your initial lesson, you can go back through and click it as a recurring lesson time. Now the trick of this is that you want to put it into your calendar. So if you have a Mac, you can put it into your iCal or your Google Cal, and then put in a recurring lesson. So say you have a weekly lesson, and then it will come up with the same number and link each week. And so what I do is in the beginning of each teaching day, in the morning, I try to set out text reminders individually to each student with the Zoom invitation links that, on how their link as well as their password on how to get onto the lesson. And I remind them of the lesson time, because if you have a recurring lesson, it will say the lesson is at any time, and you want to maybe remind them of that particular lesson time. All right, so you can record, like I am recording this right now from Zoom, and it's pretty easy to manage. On the bottom, there's just a little button where you can invite people, you can manage participants, you can share your screen, and you can chat, and you can click record. So usually when you hover, you move you hover over these things, they'll appear. And so the recording, you just click a button and it'll record. And it's good to remind your participants that if you are recording, let them know that you are recording the session. All right, so FaceTime works for iPhones, iPads, and Macs. Remember that it can cost money, and an Apple ID is needed. So don't forget about that. You will have to log in with your Apple ID. But if you have a phone, it's usually logged in already. There may be lag time, and you could have missed calls. But it's actually a very easy option, especially since most kids at a very young age have their own phones now. And the same for Skype. You have to set things up ahead of time, but again, it's very easy. Remember they have to download the app. The app is for Skype, but it's free, but exchange usernames beforehand. I like to give them online feedback. So during the lessons, I actually type out notes, lesson notes, and I then after each lesson email them. I set it up ahead of time so it has the word group by it, and it emails everybody who might be interested in how the lesson went or who may need to track what to do during practice. You need to have those duplicate books so that you can cite measure numbers if you need to. All right, I like to encourage action. So sometimes I'll ask them to send me a video of memorized music. I have follow-up things for them to do. Maybe let me know when they've practiced, when they've memorized a particular piece, or if they're having a hard time practicing, have them check in with me at the end of the week or how much they practiced. Again, for the media safeguards, make sure you include waiver releases and from lawsuits, and also media consents for video, audio recordings, images, and statements without compensation, and avoid using the complete personal information for your students when possible. Avoid using their last name if you're going to use their name at all. And I certainly would not identify students by first and last name. Don't post bios that have information, private information like their schools, no matter how impressive that might be, because it does leak out a lot of information about that individual who's probably a minor. Update the studio policy with your new payment methods. Make sure you do that. If now you can receive, they can pay by credit card or a different ACH way, make sure you put that into your studio policy. You're going to want to update any late payments or deadline fees, and let them know about automated invoicing. You can also have automated late fees, and maybe you might give students options to prepay monthly. But what I found is with all this automation, you will get paid probably earlier and on time more often than not. So you have these skills, you have the knowledge, the experience, the ability to grow, and you're all wonderful music teachers, and we are training in this the way our students are training in music and constantly learning and growing. So I encourage you all to just really jump into this. Be willing to try things out. It's not going to be error-free. It's always going to be a learning curve, but we have a lot of resources and teachers and music organizations to help guide us. And so just go for it. And I wish everybody best wishes for your success in teaching online and getting through this challenging period for everybody. Wishing you all, of course, good health. Thank you for attending my virtual session, and I'd like to thank the board and all of the staff at MTNA for all they've done to set this up and to keep this conference going and keeping us together as music teachers from around the country. If you have further questions, please contact me. I'd be happy to get to know you. You can find me also on my various social media channels, Facebook and Instagram, and I've got a YouTube channel, even Pinterest. So I'm sure you can find me. Contact me if you want me to give any virtual presentations on technology or entrepreneurism for music teachers or your music group or a college class. Let me know what topics you enjoyed. Thank you so much. It is always a privilege and honor to be a part of this wonderful conference. And I'm sorry that we couldn't meet face-to-face in Chicago, but I'm so happy that I was able to give this session online. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all online, and we will be in contact. Thank you again.